Let's not sugarcoat it. When people say the British royal family has skeletons in the closet, they're not being metaphorical. They're being terrifyingly accurate. Because among the hush scandals and suppressed documents, one particular night in December 2000 still echoes like a warning siren through the marbled halls of Sandringham estate. A night involving Prince Andrew, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and a palace that seemingly tried everything to make sure the world never found out. Spoiler alert, the world found out. And once the details started dripping out drip by nauseating drip, it was already too late. What was supposed to be a tightly contained royal secret turned into an international stain. A scandal that didn't just tarnish Prince Andrew, it exposed the fragility of the monarchy's entire reputation machine. But let's start where every royal disaster begins. Behind a very expensive set of closed doors. Sandringham isn't just another royal property. It's the royal family's sacred ground during Christmas. The Queen's private retreat. The setting for those carefully choreographed walk-to-church press shots.
If you want more unfiltered royal truth, not the palace-approved version, hit like, subscribe and tell us in the comments, are Beatrice and Eugenie breaking the cycle or repeating history? Stay tuned. The tea only gets hotter.
And while some of the royals attended publicly known events earlier in the day, what happened late that evening was something entirely different. Allegedly hosted by Prince Andrew himself, the party included a guest list so sensitive it was reportedly scrubbed from palace records. One name stands out in horrifying clarity: Jeffrey Epstein. Alongside him, Ghislaine Maxwell. And here's the detail that should make your skin crawl. According to insiders and leaked intel, the palace's CCTV system went dark at exactly 11:17 p.m. A technical failure, they said. Sure. Because when you're trying to keep one of the world's most notorious predators off the books during a secret party in the Queen's home, a little camera blackout is just the cherry on top. But the logistics of that night are just the beginning. It's what followed that reveals the true rot beneath the surface. Witnesses were allegedly shuffled. Expenses estimated at over £150,000 were reclassified under vague administrative codes. Staff contracts included updated non-disclosure clauses. Someone didn't just want to bury this story, they wanted to erase it. The Queen, famously allergic to scandal, reportedly issued an immediate order: limit contact, halt communication, and do not let this go public. And for years, it worked. For a while, the Sandringham party was just a whisper, a rumor too dark to be real. But then came 2008, Epstein's conviction, the headlines, the mounting accusations, and suddenly, that one forgotten night was back under a glaring spotlight. Now, let's be clear. Prince Andrew's connection to Epstein wasn't an open secret. It was a well-documented association. The flight logs, the New York townhouse, the infamous Central Park stroll, the photos, the testimonies. But that BBC interview in 2019, that was the royal grenade. Andrew didn't just fumble, it was like watching a slow-motion car crash in a room made of crystal. His face, his tone, the denial that he couldn't sweat, every word out of his mouth chipped away at the last remnants of public trust. And when he was asked why he'd stayed at Epstein's home after Epstein had been convicted, he responded with a straight face that he thought it was the honorable thing to do. The public recoiled. Journalists were stunned. Even palace aides reportedly stared at TV screens in horror. Within days, Andrew was stepping back from public duties, a royal euphemism for getting shoved out of the spotlight so hard he landed in exile. But here's the twist. The interview wasn't the beginning. It was the unraveling. The moment the tightly sewn royal PR seams burst open, spilling years of secrets that had been aggressively swept under priceless rugs. Because as the Epstein investigations deepened and documents were released, Sandringham came back into focus. It wasn't just a rumor anymore. It was a symbol of power misused, of silence weaponized, of a monarchy scrambling to protect itself, even if it meant protecting the wrong people. And at the heart of it all, a question no one in the palace seemed ready to answer: what really happened that night? To this day, no one has given a clear explanation. Not Andrew, not the palace, not a single named official. And that silence, it's deafening. Because in the vacuum of truth, conspiracy thrives. Witnesses have claimed that figures close to Epstein were present, that illicit activity occurred, that royal resources were abused, that lines were crossed, and not just moral ones. And whether or not every claim is provable, the damage is done. The perception is the poison. Because even if 10% of it is true, it's already catastrophic. Which brings us to the Queen's response. In 2022, under immense pressure, Her Majesty made the rare decision to strip Andrew of his military titles and royal patronages. No more HRH. No more ceremonial appearances. No more pretending this could be salvaged. It was a quiet but powerful public statement. Even my son is not above consequence. But behind that carefully composed royal face, sources say it was devastating. Not just emotionally, but institutionally. Because the monarchy's entire brand rests on mystique and moral authority. And Andrew had set fire to both. Now under King Charles, the monarchy is clearly shifting into a new mode, tighter, leaner, and at least outwardly more transparent. Charles has shown zero interest in rehabilitating Andrew's image. If anything, he's kept the exile in place quiet, deliberate, final. But despite the changes, the questions remain. Who allowed Epstein onto royal grounds? Why was security disabled at such a critical moment? How many people inside the institution knew about this and did nothing? These aren't wild speculations. They're legitimate inquiries into a moment that has never been accounted for. And the refusal to provide clarity only sharpens the suspicion. In the end, the Sandringham scandal isn't just about one knight, one prince, or one predator. It's about a system that believed it could silence scandal forever. That believed royal immunity was stronger than public memory. But the world changed. We now live in an age where digital footprints are eternal, where hidden truths don't stay buried, they trend, and where institutions that fail to confront their dark chapters are dragged into the daylight, ready or not. The British monarchy has survived wars, divorces, abdications, and tabloid explosions. But in many ways, this scandal cut deeper, because it exposed the ultimate taboo. Not that a prince misbehaved, but that he did so with protection, in secrecy, on the sovereign's own land. And that's something even 1,000 PR consultants can't undo. So, as new documents continue to emerge, as victims speak louder, and as a new generation demands answers, the legacy of that December night will linger like smoke in a closed room. The monarchy may wish Sandringham would fade into the fog of history. But the public, we remember, we question, and we won't be silenced. Because power without accountability is just a scandal waiting to be exposed. And in this case, it already has been. Let's not pretend this is just about Prince Andrew anymore. That would be too easy. Convenient, even. Because while he may be the face of the Sandringham scandal, the disastrous BBC interview, the stripped titles, the self-destruction in real time, he's also a symptom of something bigger. A system that, for generations, has relied on discretion as a weapon. And for once, it backfired. Because here's what the Sandringham party really exposed. It wasn't just about what happened that night in 2000. It was about how the institution reacted to it. About how quickly the gates slammed shut. How swiftly records disappeared. How many people were told to look away. And that tells you everything. When power is challenged, it doesn't panic. It closes ranks. It makes decisions behind drawn curtains. And if you're on the inside, you learn quickly what's sacred. The family name. The image. The illusion of purity. The truth. That's optional. Now, let's talk timing. This all happened at the tail end of 2000. Barely 3 years after Princess Diana's death. The royal family was still recovering from one of its most severe reputational crises. The Queen was being rebranded as more accessible, less aloof. Charles was trying to clean up the post-divorce narrative. And the young princes were, for the most part, still out of public scandal territory. So when Andrew decided to play host to one of the most toxic figures of the international elite, it wasn't just bad optics, it was nuclear-level reckless. And you think the Queen didn't notice? You think the royal handlers didn't feel that icy pit in their stomachs when they realized who had stepped inside Sandringham? Make no mistake, people noticed. They just didn't speak. Because silence, in this world, isn't just protection, it's policy. But here's where it gets truly dark. The scale of the cover-up. Let's zoom in. The party happens. Epstein arrives, whether publicly escorted or privately flown, we still don't know. Maxwell is present. Other guests come and go under names that never appear in official logs. The palace CCTV, normally a redundant, triple redundant system, goes down at 11:17 p.m. No explanation. Just offline. Later, the catering invoices are broken up, split across departments. The event isn't recorded in the household calendar. Staff members are either reassigned or quietly phased out. By the time January hits, it's as if the party never happened. And yet it did. The whispers survived. Staff talked. External contractors talked. Over the years, little breadcrumbs started to drop. Some dismissed them. Others started connecting dots. And then, when Epstein was arrested again, and the full scale of his abuse came to light, those breadcrumbs looked a lot less like gossip and a lot more like a map. Suddenly, Sandringham was no longer just a festive royal retreat. It was ground zero for the question, how much did they know? And more importantly, how much did they choose not to know? Because that's the quiet power of institutions like the monarchy. The ability to not just suppress, but to pretend ignorance in the face of reality. To say, well, there's no proof, while controlling every door that leads to it. But let's flip the lens. Imagine you're a royal aide at the time. You know what happened. You saw the guests. Maybe you served them. Maybe you escorted them in. And now you're being told to forget, to scrub, to sign, to keep your head down. What do? Some walked away. Some stayed quiet. Some whispered to the right people at the right moment. And bit by bit, the truth started to leak through the cracks. The public, by now, had grown weary of fairy tales. They were no longer content with staged balcony waves and vague apologies. We'd entered the era of receipts. And Sandringham, that was a receipt that people wanted, needed. Because it wasn't just about Andrew anymore. It was about the rot beneath the institution. What else had been buried? Who else had been protected? And that brings us to the monarchy's fatal flaw. The belief that discretion would always be stronger than scrutiny. That they could outlast the press. That by waiting long enough, scandals would just pass. But the world changed, and they didn't. When Andrew gave that infamous interview, he didn't just defend himself, he exposed how deeply disconnected he was from reality. No remorse, no accountability, just bizarre statements, awkward laughter, and the galling implication that he was the victim of unfortunate timing. Unfortunate, try disgusting. That interview cracked something open. It made people reevaluate everything. If this is how a royal handles scandal, this is how little they understand consequence. What else have they been allowed to get away with? And that's the Sandringham effect. It's not just a scandal. It's a symbol of how power protects itself, of how reputation is prioritized over right and wrong, of how a family claiming moral leadership can be caught harboring the worst kind of secret and respond with stone-faced silence. So where are we now? Andrew remains a royal in title only. His public life is over. His patronages gone. His military affiliations revoked. His royal appearances reduced to vague tabloid sightings and scandal-drenched sidebars. But does that feel like justice? Not really. Because the questions haven't gone away. And the victims, they still haven't gotten answers. Sandringham remains a wound. A quiet one. A hidden one. But one that keeps bleeding into public trust. Every time a document resurfaces. Every time a journalist mentions that night. Every time the CCTV blackout is brought up, it all reopens. And it begs a question the monarchy still hasn't answered. What were you hiding? The monarchy has tried to move on. With King Charles at the helm, there's a new tone, slightly more modern, slightly more cautious. There's talk of transparency, of accountability, but none of it will mean anything if the ghosts of Sandringham are still locked in the basement. There has to be more. More than silence. More than statements. More than quietly removing someone from the website and hoping people forget. Because people haven't forgotten. They remember the opulence, the secrecy, the CCTV, the lies, the disgrace, and what they want isn't just an apology from Andrew. They want proof that this will never happen again. That the royal family understands the era has changed. That being above it all is no longer a shield, it's a target. That silence is complicity. And complicity has a cost. So yes, Andrew's party inside the Queen's palace was disgusting. But what came after? The cover-up, the silence, the absolute refusal to speak the truth, that's what's truly unforgivable. Because it wasn't just a bad decision. It was betrayal. Of public trust. Of royal duty. Of basic human decency. And until someone inside that palace says out loud what really happened at Sandringham, the shame will remain. Heavy, festering, royal. And if you think the monarchy has put this behind them, think again. The shadow of that night still lingers over every single royal press appearance, every walkabout, every painstakingly rehearsed photo op. You can feel it in the stiffness, in the strained smiles, in the awkward silence whenever Prince Andrew's name comes up, if it's allowed to come up at all. Because Sandringham wasn't just a PR mess. It was a break in the illusion. A reminder that, for all the pageantry and pearls, for all the castles and titles and ceremony, this institution is still made of fallible people and worse, fallible systems designed to protect them no matter the cost. And make no mistake, the cost has been high. In the months and years after the Epstein scandal exploded, and the Sandringham party re-entered the public discourse, trust in the monarchy didn't just dip, it fractured. For many, This was the line that couldn't be uncrossed. The idea that a known predator had walked freely through one of the Queen's most private residences, hosted by her own son, with no consequence until the public forced one. It confirmed what people had long suspected. The palace protects its own, even when the rest of us would be thrown to the wolves. And the irony, for a family built on the idea of service and duty, the refusal to confront the truth was the most damaging betrayal of all. Let's zoom out for a second. The monarchy has always relied on distance, physical, emotional, cultural. That's the whole idea, right? They're above us, elevated, meant to represent ideals, not individuals. Which is exactly why when individuals behave in ways that are reprehensible, the institution rushes to pretend it didn't happen, because acknowledging it makes them, like us, fallible, corruptible, human. But here's what the Sandringham affair made brutally clear. The distance isn't nobility, it's a shield. One that's been used time and time again to dodge accountability, to delay justice, to avoid questions. And in this case, it wasn't just a PR shield, it was a fortress. A fortress built on silence, sealed by tradition, and guarded by generations of people more loyal to image than to truth. And it worked, for a while. But now, we're in a different world. We live in a post-#MeToo, post-Diana interview, post-Netflix royal drama world. A world where we've seen behind the curtain, where we know too much to ever go back, where someone, somewhere, always has the receipts. And no amount of palace stonewalling can stop the public from piecing the truth together. The royal family's instinct deny, delay, distract might have worked in 1982. But in 2025, it just confirms suspicion. Every silence is interpreted as guilt. Every no comment reads like a confession. And the longer the royals refuse to speak plainly about what happened that night, about who was there, what was known, and why Epstein was ever allowed inside, the worse it gets. Because you know what people hate even more than bad behavior? Entitlement. And nothing screams entitlement louder than a prince throwing a secret party with a sex offender in the Queen's private estate, and facing no real consequences until a BBC journalist shreds him on national television nearly 2 decades later. This wasn't just a lapse in judgment. It was a display of how insulated, how arrogant, and how unaccountable the system had become. And the British public noticed. The world noticed. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.